Hi everyone. In this first lecture on human reproduction, we are going to discuss about the male and female reproductive systems in detail. So first of all, in the human reproduction process, like in the case of other sexually reproducing organisms, we can classify the total events into three different phases. One is the pre-fertilization events, fertilization and post-fertilization events. So here, the pre-fertilization events include gametogenesis, where spermatogenesis is the male gametogenesis, whereas oogenesis can be seen in the female. And later, the transfer of gamete is through insemination, that is gamete transfer, and it is followed by the fertilization. Once fertilization is completed, the zygote will undergo cleavage. So, at a stage called a blastocyst that will be implanted in the uterus. Later, there will be a development of placenta, and the blastocyst will develop into the gastrula, which is called gastrulation, and there will be development of organs also, which is called organogenesis. So all this includes the gestation period. Later, once the development is completed, the baby will be delivered, which is technically called the parturition. So here gametogenesis, insemination, fertilization, implantation, gestation, and parturition. These are all the various events in human reproduction process. So first we'll start with discussing the human male and female reproductive systems in detail. Later we'll move to the other events in the reproduction process. So in the case of human male, the primary sex organs are the testes. The singular is testis. Whereas in the female, the primary sex organs are ovaries, and in addition to these primary sex organs, axillary ducts and organs also can be found in both the male and female reproductive systems. External genitalia are also present. Basically, the primary sex organs function is to produce the gametes. In addition to that, they'll also secrete hormones. So, the primary sex organs means they are the organs which are actually involved in the gamete formation, that is gametogenesis. That is the primary function of these primary sex organs. Now coming to the first part of our discussion today, that is male reproductive system. Here the location of the male reproductive system is the pelvis region of the male. Basically the male reproductive system include testes, as we have seen the singular is testis, or the testes also called testicles. Axillary ducts include epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, and urethra. Glands include seminal vesicles, prostate, bulbourethral gland, whereas the external genitalia include penis. So these are all the different components in the male reproductive system in human. This one is the frontal view of the same, where you can see this is the testis, inside which there are seminiferous tubules, and later here comes the epididymis, and this one is the vas deferens, and these are the seminal vesicles in the glands. This one is a prostate. Now this vas deferens, two vasa differentia from two different testes, you can see here, two vasa differentia will combine to form the ejaculatory duct. Later will enter into the urethra. So this is how the male reproductive system will be. Now coming to the details of the individual components of the male reproductive system, the first component is the testes. The testes are the primary male sex organs, as we have seen, as they secrete hormones, and they'll be involved in the gametogenesis process. The size of the testis, each testis will be around 4 to 5 centimeters, and the width of which will be 2 to 3 centimeters. So this is the length, 4 to 5 centimeters length, whereas 2 to 3 centimeters width. That is the size of each testis will be. So I'm talking about this particular part. This is one testis will be. And the testes are actually present outside the abdominal cavity in the sacs called scrotal sacs. whereas the primary sex organs in female, that is ovaries, will be present inside the abdominal cavity only. So unlike the female primary sex organs, here the testes are present outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotal sacs. The reason for this thing is the spermatogenesis process cannot occur at the body temperature. So the required temperature for the spermatogenesis is 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, lesser than the body temperature. So that particular temperature is provided in the scrotal sacs. That's the reason why the testes are present inside the scrotal sacs. In the fetal stage, actually these testes will be present inside the abdominal cavity only. But during the 7th month of development, the testes will be descended into the scrotal sacs. In very rare cases, like 1 to 3 in 100 male births, there is a possibility of the failure of this descending. That is, the descending of this testes will be failed. So this failure to descend into the scrotal sacs is called a cryptorchidism. That particular condition is called cryptorchidism. So if you see the meaning of this cryptorchidism in detail, cryptos is actually hidden. Like in the case of cryptogams, in the case of plants, we have seen this cryptogams. Cryptos is hidden. Orchis or orchid refers to the testes. So hidden testes, because the testes are present inside the abdominal cavity as they fail to descend into the scrotal sacs. That condition is called cryptorchidism. Next, this testis is one testis. This particular part when I just take, this is actually covered by a dense covering called tunica albuginea. This one is the tunica albu. This one is the scrotal sac is. This is the tunica albuginea is. So it is a dense covering surrounding the testis. Actually, when you just look into this ducts, the seminiferous tubules are here. They are connected with the rete testis. This particular part is the rete testis, and they'll open into vasa efferentia. These ducts are the vasa efferentia. So the vasa efferentia from the testis are actually passing through this tunica albuginea. So this is the tunica albuginea is the vasa efferentia are piercing through this. They are coming out of this tunica albuginea. Next, the scrotum will communicate with the abdominal cavity. This communication will be through one canal called inguinal canal. And there will be a cord called spermatic cord that consists of the connective tissue, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerves. So this is the one. So this is called the spermatic cord. This spermatic cord will pass through this inguinal canals. So the abdominal cavity is connected with the scrotal sac through this inguinal canal, inside which the spermatic cord will pass. And these testes are actually attached with the scrotal sacs inner side with one ligamentous connective cord called gubernaculum. So this gubernaculum is a ligamentous connective cord which is elastic in nature that connects the testes to the scrotal sacs inside. That's how the testes will be. Now there are some cases where in the case of for example bats, rats, otter, the testes descend to the scrotal sacs only during the breeding season. Means when it is not the breeding season, these are actually the seasonal breeders with respect to their reproduction. So only during the breeding season only these testes will be descended into the scrotal sacs. So in the remaining seasons the testes will be present inside the abdominal cavity only. But in the case of whales and elephants, the testes are actually present inside the abdominal cavity only. That is, the body temperature in these organisms will favor the spermatogenesis. Therefore, there will not be descending of testes into the scrotal sacs. And one technical term, that is orchidectomy, is actually the surgical removal of testes. Again, if you see the meaning of this word, orchis, as we have seen, orchid is the testes, and tomy is cutting is. So surgical removal or cutting of this testis is called orchidectomy. It is also called castration process. Now coming to the internal structure of the testis, one testis, each testis consists of about 250 chamber-like structures called testicular lobules. See, like this, like this, like this. There are many testicular lobules. So each testis consists of about 250 testicular lobules. Now inside each testicular lobule, there are 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. These are the regions where the spermatogenesis will take place. Therefore, one testis consists of about 250 to 750 seminiferous tubules. That is, two testes together, there will be around 500 to 1500 seminiferous tubules. That's the total number of seminiferous tubules in two testes. So now coming to this seminiferous tubules, the detailed structure of the seminiferous tubules. In the total testis, the seminiferous tubules only will form about 80% of the testicular substance. So majority of the testis. So as I told you, this is only the testis. This particular part is the testis. In this 80% of this testicular substance is seminiferous tubule only. And this is the site for the sperm production, that is spermatogenesis. Now this is the seminiferous tubules. Now when you just look into the cross section of this particular part, the cross section of this particular part, this is how it is. So this is one seminiferous tubule is, that is this particular part. So this is another seminiferous tubule. This is the other one. This is the other one. Like this, the cross section of the seminiferous tubule. When you just look into the details of this, inside the seminiferous tubule, in the inner lining of this seminiferous tubule, you can find the spermatogonia. From the spermatogonia only, there will be synthesis of spermatozoa. This is the lumen of seminiferous tubule. Now, this particular region, that is the region among various seminiferous tubules, consists of interstitial cells or Leydig cells. So this particular region consists of interstitial cells or Leydig cells. These Leydig cells only will secrete these androgens. Testosterone and other androgens will be secreted from this interstitial cells or Leydig cells only. So in addition to these cells, there will be some immunocompetent cells also in this particular region. Right. So in addition to this spermatogonia, in the inner lining of this seminiferous tubules, there are Sertoli cells also. The function of which will be nourishment of the spermatogonia, and they will also secrete androgen binding protein. So this androgen binding protein, when secreted, this is androgen binding protein is. This will bind with the androgens. So androgens are actually secreted from the interstitial cells or Leydig cells. Now this androgen binding protein secreted by the Sertoli cells will bind with these androgens. Therefore, the androgens can be accumulated inside this seminiferous tubule. Therefore, there will be proper spermatogenesis. That's the function of this androgen binding protein will be. Now coming to the inhibin. So the Sertoli cells also secrete this inhibin. It will actually inhibit the follicular stimulating hormone from the pituitary, that is anterior pituitary. Next, coming to the epididymis. So as we have seen, the seminiferous tubules actually will open into the tubular structures called tubulus rectus. Later, they'll be connected with the rete testis. The rete testis will open into the vasa efferentia. which in turn open into the epididymis. So we are talking about this epididymis. So this epididymis is present outside the testis, in the back side of the testis, that is in the posterior side. So this is actually the posterior side of the testis. So you can see here, this is the testis. On back side of it, on the posterior side of this, you can find this epididymis. This one is epididymis. Yes. This one. This epididymis is one irregular and highly convoluted structure which is very narrow. The length of which will be about 6 meters. The length of one epididymis will be 6 meters. So this is very lengthy structure and a very highly convoluted structure. And the sperms which are produced inside the seminiferous tubules will pass through these ducts and will reach the epididymis where they can be temporarily stored. The storage can be up to 20 days inside this epididymis, where the sperms will achieve maturity and motility. So the motility of the sperms will be increased when they are stored inside this. So they are getting matured inside this epididymis. And each epididymis consists of three different components. One is the caput epididymis. So caput is head. So head of the epididymis. Corpus means body of epididymis. Cauda epididymis. Cauda means again tail. So it is caput epididymis, corpus epididymis, and cauda epididymis. These are the different components of one epididymis. And coming to the other axillary ducts, the epididymis will open into the vas deferens. So the details of all the the axillary ducts, when you just look into this particular structure, this is where you can find the seminiferous tubules. The seminiferous tubules are connected with the rete testis. This is the rete testis. They are connected with the rete testis through this tubulus rectus. These are the tubulus rectus. These structures, these tubular structures. Now this rete testis will open into vasa efferentia. This is where the vasa efferentia is. And as we have seen, the tunica albuginea. This is the tunica albuginea that is present surrounding this testis. So this vasa efferentia are actually piercing through this. Now they will enter into the this epididymis. Now this cauda epididymis, the tail of the epididymis, is connected with vas deferens. Vas deferens is the singular, whereas the plural form of this thing is vasa differentia. So I am talking about one vas deferens. So this is the vas deferences. This is completely the vas deferences. This is the vas deferences. So this vas deferens will be looped over the urinary bladder like this. This is the vas deferences. And going back, that is posterior side of this urinary bladder, where it is actually connected with the ducts from the seminal vesicles. So this is the seminal vesicle. This is the duct from the seminal vesicle. Now this vas deferens is connected with the duct from the seminal vesicle. So there are two vasa deferentia and two seminal vesicles. So seminal vesicles are paired glands. So the ducts from the seminal vesicles and vasa deferentia, all these will combine and will form ejaculatory duct. One ejaculatory duct will form. This is the ejaculatory duct. This ejaculatory duct will enter into the urethra. This is the urethra. So this urethra is actually urinogenital tract, because through this urethra, both urine from this urinary bladder as well as the semen from this reproductive tract, both will be ejaculatory duct. Both will be passed through this urethra. Therefore, it is called urinogenital tract. Now, this urethra also receive the ducts from bulbourethral gland. This is the bulbourethral gland. From this also ducts will enter into the urethra. Next, prostate. Glands from prostate also will enter into urethra. So the urethra is receiving the glands from this prostate and Cowper's gland also. So vasa differentia and ducts from the seminal vesicles are combined to form the ejaculatory duct. Now the ejaculatory duct is passing through the prostate. So you can see this is the prostate, is the ejaculatory duct is passing through this and will be forming the urethra later. That's how the accessory ducts in the male reproductive system will be. And as we have seen, the urethra, the end of this urethra, this one is the meatus, that is opening, will be through this, the whether the release of semen or the urine will be. Now coming to the glands, various accessory glands. Basically in the male reproductive system, three types of glands are present. Paired glands, seminal vesicles and Cowper's glands. So these two are paired glands, whereas one prostate gland is present. So coming to the seminal vesicles, this is one pair as we have seen, and the seminal vesicles secrete one alkaline fluid, the pH of which will be 7.4. So when you just look into the semen composition, the major part of the semen is actually secreted by this seminal vesicles only. So semen doesn't mean that it is only spermatozoa, sperms, that also consists of the other secretions. So in that total composition of semen, majority of the semen is actually composed of the secretions from the seminal fluid only, seminal vesicles only. Now coming to the seminal fluid, it basically contains fructose, which actually provide nutrition to the spermatozoa. So the energy source for the spermatozoa will be fructose. Next, it also consists of citrate, ascorbic acid, and there will be prostaglandins, coagulating enzymes. So these prostaglandins will be helpful in the vigorous contractions of the uterus once the insemination is completed. Means it will stimulate the vigorous contractions inside the uterus. And coagulating enzymes will make the coagulation of the semen after the insemination. Now coming to the prostate gland, it just encircles the urethra. So this is the urethra, is it is just encircling the urethra. So one prostate gland is present, and it secretes a slightly alkaline fluid, the pH of which will be 6.5. Now coming to the composition of this fluid, it contains citric acid, several enzymes, and substances which are important for the sperm's mobility. An important component in that is albumin, and also consists of prostate specific antigens are also present in this. And below that, a pair of Cowper's glands, also called bulbourethral glands, are present. Here, one pair of bulbourethral glands are present, and they'll secrete one alkaline fluid, like seminal vesicle. The important function of this particular secretion will be lubrication of the penis. In addition to that, it will neutralize the urine in the urethra also. As we know, urine is actually acidic in nature. So when the urine passes through the urethra, the internal lumen of this urethra will become acidic. That has to be neutralized. That neutralization is performed by this secretions from the bulbourethral gland, as they are alkaline in nature. Now coming to the external genitalia. So in the male reproductive system, the external genitalia include the penis, where this one is the penis, which is actually the copulatory organ. So it is involved in the copulation process, and it is highly vascular. That is, it consists of blood vessels. Fully, it consists of blood vessels, and it is composed of spongy tissue, and the function of this spongy tissue will be erectile function. So basically, the penis is vascular, spongy, and erectile structure. Now coming to this erectile tissue present inside the penis, this one, this particular one. So this is the urethra is. So the urethra is passing through the penis. Surrounding this urethra, this one is corpus spongiosum. As we know, corpus is again body. Spongiosum is spongy tissue. So immediately surrounding this urethra, there is corpus spongiosum, completely surrounding the urethra. And above that, there are two Corpora cavernosa. This one is one, this one is one. So both Corpora cavernosa and Corpus spongiosum, all this is the spongy tissue in the penis. And at the end, the penis is actually enlarged. This particular region is called glans penis. This is covered by one loose fold of skin called foreskin or prepuce. So that's how the structure of penis will be. Now during ejaculation, so basically ejaculation is forceful expulsion of semen. So semen which is present inside this testis and epididymis will be expelled during the ejaculation process. That expulsion is called ejaculation. So in each ejaculation there will be around 3 ml of semen will be ejaculated, and that contains about 300 million spermatozoa. So that's how the male reproductive system will be. Now coming to the female reproductive system, the location of the female reproductive system is again the pelvis only, and it includes a pair of ovaries which are present inside the abdominal cavity. So these ovaries are present inside the abdominal cavity, unlike the testes. So testes are present outside the abdominal cavity. Means oogenesis can occur at the body temperature. And it includes accessory organs like oviducts. So you can see the oviduct here, and uterus. This is the uterus is cervix. You can see the cervix region. This one is the cervix region, and vagina. This part is the vagina. Yes. Next, coming to the glands, there are Bartholin glands and skin glands. So the secretions and functions we'll see in detail. The external genitalia include clitoris, labia majora, labia minora, and there will be hymen that covers the vaginal orifice. So coming to the first component of the female reproductive system, that is the ovaries. So as we have seen, a pair of ovaries are present inside the abdominal cavity. So on each side of the lower abdomen, you can find one ovary. So they'll be involved in the oogenesis process. That's the primary function. In addition to that, they'll also secrete the female sex organs, so sex hormones. Now coming to the size of this ovary, each ovary will be about 2 to 4 centimeters in length. And this ovary is connected with the pelvic wall with the suspensory ligaments and the uterus. So here it is connected with the uterus. This is the uterus. It is connected with the uterus with the ovarian ligament. So the mesovarium, overall the ovary is connected with the abdominal cavity with the mesovarium, and each ovary is covered by a thin germinal epithelium. So the outer one is the thin germinal epithelium that encloses ovarian stroma. This is completely the ovarian stroma. Yes. So germinal epithelium, the layer on the surface of this, and this is completely the stroma. Yes. The stroma is divided into two different components. So we have seen in the majority of the organs, we will see the outer part is cortex, the inner part is medulla. The same thing here also. The stroma is differentiated into outer cortex. This one is the outer cortex, and the inner medulla. This is the inner medulla. Yes. This cortex possesses ovarian follicles. So in different stages, the ovarian follicles are present in this cortex. And coming to the stroma, it possesses the loose connective tissue inside which you can find blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerves, all these things can be found inside this. Coming to the accessory organs here, basically the oviducts or fallopian tubes are present. So a pair of oviducts or fallopian tubes are present. So each fallopian tube is this, that consists of infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus. Together it is called one fallopian tube. Now this infundibulum is present towards the ovary. That is, when there is ovulation, the ovum will be released from this ovary, and it will be collected by this infundibulum by using the fimbriae. The finger-like projections are called fimbriae. So like this, the ovum which is released in the ovulation process will enter into infundibula. From there it will enter into the elevated part, that is ampulla, and later it will enter into isthmus, and this is where the fertilization will occur. Now this fallopian tube is connected with the uterus. So uterus or womb is the pear-shaped structure that is connected with the fallopian tubes on both sides. Now coming to the different components of the uterus, the main body of the uterus is this. So majority of the uterus is the body is, this is the complete body is. The upper dome-like structure is called uterine fundus. So basically fundus is the term we can see in different organs, like even in the stomach also. It's the elevated dome-like structure. So uterine fundus, and these corners, these parts are called cornua, through which they are connected with the fallopian tubes. And this is the uterine cavities. Inside this only the development of fetus will be. Now coming to the wall of this uterus, there are three layers in the wall of uterus. The outermost one is perimetrium. Peri is surrounding. Metrium refers to the uterus. Myometrium is the middle layer. Myo is muscle. Metrium is uterus. The middle layer of this thing is myometrium is. And the inner side of this thing is endometrium. So this is shown in color. This is the endometrium is. That is inner layer is endometrium. Again, this endometrium basically consists of two different layers. So towards the inner side, that is towards the myometrium, there is basal layer. Basal layer is present. And towards this lumen, towards this cavity, there is a functional layer or sponge layer. Basically, the thickness of this functional layer or sponge layer will be changing. So in the menstrual cycle, we will come back to this particular point. The thickness of this particular layer will be changing, whereas the basal layers, the thickness will remain constant. So overall, the endometrium layer thickness will be changing. Now coming to the myometrium, as the muscles are present inside this, and one important thing regarding this thing is, from this top towards the cervix side, the number of muscle fibers present inside this muscular layer will be decreased. So highest number of muscles can be found towards this upper region, and this number will be decreased towards this particular region. So this is helpful in the expulsion of the developed child during parturition process. Now coming to the next component of this axillary organs, the uterus is connected with the cervix. So this is the cervix. This particular part, the inner part of the cervix is called the cervical canal. This is a cervical canal is. This cervical canal is connected with the uterus cavity through internal os. It is called internal os. This is internal os or internal orifices. And it is connected with the vagina towards the outer side with the outer os. This is the outer os or external os, not internal, it is external os. So internal os will connect the cervical canal with the uterine cavity, and the external os will connect this with the vagina. And then the outer part is vagina, inside which the insemination will occur. So just additional information, the surgical removal of uterus is called a hysterectomy. This is just for additional information. So where again tomy is the cutting, hystero refers to the uterus. So hysterectomy is the surgical removal of uterus. Now this cervix, the cervical canal together with the vagina will form the birth canal. That is, the birth of the well-developed child will take place through this only. That's why it is called the birth canal. So together cervical canal and vagina called birth canal. Now coming to the external genitalia in the female reproductive system, the first one is the mons pubis, which is a cushion of fatty tissue, which is actually covered by skin and pubic hair. And labia majora are the fleshy folds of tissue which extend down from the mons pubis, that is this, and surround the vaginal orifice. So vaginal orifice is surrounded by this labia majora, and this labia majora are actually homologous to the scrotal sacs. So in the male reproductive system, the scrotal sac is homologous to labia majora. Labia minora are the paired folds of tissue under the labia majora. So just below this labia majora, pair of folds are present, which are called labia minora. And the vaginal orifice, the vaginal opening is actually covered by one membranous sheath called hymen. And there is one finger-like projection called clitoris, just present on the upper junction of labia minora. So just above this, so just labia minora, it's a pair uh, for fleshy folds. So in the upper junction, here you can find the clitoris. This clitoris is homologous to penis in the male. Next, this vagina and urethra will open into one common passage that's called the vestibule. So vestibule is a structure that consists of openings of vagina and urethra. So both the urethra and vagina open separately into the vestibule. But in the case of male reproductive system, we have seen the urethra is joined with the ejaculatory duct. That's why urethra is urinogenital tract there. Now coming to the glands in the female, the first thing is Bartholin glands, are also called greater vestibular glands. They're actually present on posterior to the left and right of openings of the vagina. The basic function of this thing is they'll add some mucus secretion that will lubricate the vagina, and these are the glands which are homologous to bulbourethral glands. So there we have seen the bulbourethral glands will secrete one mucus secretion which will lubricate the penis. And coming to the other glands, skin glands are present just around the lower end of the urethra, and these are homologous to prostate glands. Now coming to the mammary glands, so as we know, the mammary glands are the characteristic feature of only the mammals. So these mammary glands are not directly involved in the reproduction process. Unlike the other structures we have seen, all these are actually, whatever the structures we have seen, they are actually involved in the reproduction process. The mammary glands are not involved in the reproduction process. But later, for the nurturing of the newly born child, these mammary glands are helpful. So from which the milk will be secreted, that which is highly nutritious and also consists of antibodies. So as we know, the colostrum, the milk secreted in the early days after parturition, consists of antibodies. So that antibodies actually helpful in the passive immunity in the newly born child. Now coming to the structure of the mammary glands. So each breast or mammary gland consists of the fatty tissue, that is adipose tissue, and there are mammary lobes. These are all the mammary lobes, sir. These are the lobes. So basically, each mammary gland consists of adipose tissue and various lobes. So these are all the lobes, sir. So there are around 15 to 20 lobes in each breast. Now coming to this lobe, inside this lobe there are sac-like structures called alveoli. So just the generalized representation of this. So there are sac-like structures called alveoli. Inside this only the milk will be secreted. So the cells present in the inner lining of this alveolus will secrete the milk. This alveolus will open into mammary tubule. So these are the mammary tubules. Here you can see, say if this is the alveolus, this alveolus will enter into, is connected with mammary tubule. Now the mammary tubules, like this, many alveoli are present in each lobe, each mammalian lobe. Like this, many alveoli are present. From each alveolus, one mammary tubule is generated. Now, if I take this is one lobe, all the mammary tubules of one lobe are collected together and will be joined together to form mammary duct. So you can see this blue colored one is one mammary lobes. The alveoli are opening into the mammary tubules. So the mammary tubules of one complete lobe are coming out as mammary ducts. So this one is the mammary ductus. So that's why this structure is represented like this. Now alveoli and mammary tubules together are the part of lobe. So this is one lobe is. Right, from this lobe, this complete lobe, mammary duct is released. So like this, many mammary ducts will combine to form an elevated structure called mammary ampulla. So this is the mammary ampulla. All these are the mammary ampulla. Now this mammary ampulla will open into the lactiferous ducts, which actually open outside. So here they will open outside. So through this only the ejection of milk will be. So this is how the female reproductive system will be. So thank you very much. So in the next lecture, we'll discuss about the gametogenesis process, that is spermatogenesis in male and oogenesis in the female. Thank you.